In the waning light of a cold Eastern European evening, Michael, a fervent American YouTube blogger who likes to walk through abandoned places with a penchant for the undiscovered, trudged through the dense underbrush of an ancient forest. He had come seeking the elusive remnants of a time long past, the fabled Slavic huts that dotted these woods, whispering tales of a forgotten era. His journey, fueled by tales and folklore, had brought him far from the bustling streets of his native New York to this secluded expanse of wilderness. As dusk settled like a heavy cloak, Michael realized he had wandered farther than intended. The forest, a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, seemed to close in around him. His compass, a faithful companion on many adventures, now seemed to mock him with its erratic. It was then, amidst the growing gloom, that he stumbled upon it. An ancient hut, its time-worn walls sunk deep into the earth, as if the forest itself had claimed it as its own. The hut, with its thatched roof and gnarled wooden door, beckoned him with an eerie allure. Michael's heart raced with excitement and a tinge of fear. This was what he had come for, yet something about the hut sent shivers down his spine. With a deep breath, he pushed open the creaking door. The interior was shrouded in darkness, save for the last vestiges of daylight that seeped through the cracks in the walls. In the far corner, a shape caught his eye, a figure hunched over, its face turned away. Michael's voice faltered as he called out, but the figure remained motionless. A sense of unease crept over him, and he stepped closer. Without warning, the figure turned. Its face, if it could be called that, was a void, a darkness so deep it seemed to swallow the light around it. Michael's scream was lost in the void as the shape lunged towards him. In blind terror, he fled the hut, the entity in relentless pursuit. Michael's heart raced as the forest around him seemed to come alive, each shadow morphing into sinister shapes in the dimming light. The ancient Slavic hut, once an object of his fascination, now stood as a sinister relic, its darkened windows like unblinking eyes watching his frantic escape. The forest, once a place of wonder, now transformed into a nightmarish maze. Branches clawed at Michael's face as he ran, the sound of his pursuer a constant echo behind him. His mind raced with panic and confusion. What was this creature? Why was it chasing him? The entity, a mere silhouette against the failing light, pursued him relentlessly. It moved with an unnatural grace, gliding over the forest floor, its form flickering like a candle flame in the wind. Michael could hear its breath, a raspy, hollow sound that seemed to echo from the depths of the earth. The air grew colder with each step, and a dense mist began to rise from the ground, snaking around his ankles as if trying to slow his desperate run. Branches tore at his clothes, leaving shallow cuts on his skin. Michael stumbled over roots that seemed to twist and writhe beneath his feet, as if alive. He dared not look back, his mind filled with images of the void-like face that had turned towards him in the hut. It was as if the forest itself had come alive, animated by the presence of the entity. Suddenly, a light pierced through the darkness ahead. Michael's heart surged with hope. It was the lantern held by Ivan, the elderly gamekeeper. With a final burst of energy, Michael emerged from the thicket, almost collapsing into Ivan's arms, gasping for breath. Michael recounted his terrifying encounter. Ivan's weathered face remained impassive as he listened, his eyes reflecting a knowledge far deeper than Michael could fathom. "You have awakened the shadow," Ivan spoke in a tone that seemed to resonate with the very trees around them. "It is the guardian of these woods, a protector of ancient secrets and forgotten gods. You are not the first to stir its wrath, but you must be the last." Michael's eyes widened in realization and fear. "How do I escape it? Please, you have to help me." Ivan nodded slowly, turning to lead Michael away from the heart of the forest. As they walked, Ivan spoke of the history of the woods, of how they were once sacred ground, revered and feared by those who knew of their power. The shadow, he explained, was a manifestation of the forest's will, a force that ensured its sanctity was maintained. The further they walked, the calmer the forest seemed to become. The oppressive feeling of being watched slowly faded, and the mist began to disperse. Just as the edge of the woods came into view, Ivan halted. "This is where we part ways," Ivan said, his voice taking on a strange, echoing quality. Michael, confused and still fearful, looked at Ivan. But how do I make sure it doesn't follow me? How do I make amends? They turned to face him, and in the dim light, his features seemed to shift. His eyes, once kind and human, now gleamed with an otherworldly light. His form wavered like a shadow cast by flickering flames. You have already made your amends, Michael. Ivan's voice was no longer just his own, but a chorus of whispers like leaves rustling in the wind. By respecting the woods and acknowledging their power, you have appeased the shadow. With a sinking feeling, Michael realized the truth. Ivan and the shadow were one and the same, two aspects of the same ancient force that guarded the forest. The gamekeeper was the human embodiment, a guide for those who lost their way, while the shadow was the protector, a guardian against those who would despoil the sacred ground. You are free to go, Ivan said, his form solidifying once more into the elderly gamekeeper. But remember this encounter, carry its lesson wherever you go. As Michael stepped out of the forest, he turned back to see Ivan one last time, but the gamekeeper was gone, swallowed by the shadows of the trees. The forest, now serene in the moonlight, seemed to whisper a farewell. As he made his way towards the lights of the town, Michael knew he had experienced something extraordinary, a brush with an ancient power that had changed him forever. He would leave these woods behind, but the memory of the shadow and its guardian, the gamekeeper Ivan, would remain with him, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lie hidden in the forgotten corners of the world. Thank you all for listening. Write your feelings after this video in the comments. Bye-bye.